What's going on, guys? It's your favorite military disciplinarian. um, no, I'm just joking, guys. Not really. Um, although I am a disciplinarian, I'm not a military disciplinarian. But yeah, anyway, guys. Today I kind of want to talk about a topic. Which I have kind of talked about before. The OGs to this channel know that I talked about this topic from my personal experience like 3 years ago now. Um, Towards the beginning of what I like to call this channel's mini blow ups, where I've gotten just a surge of subscribers. And yeah, I kind of wanted to get more philosophical about it this time, and talk about discipline and order as general concepts rather than personally. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm a person that is on the side of discipline. Like, I feel like for any good life, discipline is necessary to get what you want and things like that. You know what I mean? And like I'll admit that it does come from my upbringing. A lot of my especially the paternal side of my family, they were involved in military affairs and politics. And those institutions, say what you will about them, but they usually have, at least if you have honest, honorable institutions within your territory or whatever, or social group, they usually come with a certain expectation of decorum, of discipline, that that you do put aside your um personal feelings for some sort of greater good. Usually it's the body politic. Um and I do like that expression because I think of Hobbes's Leviathan and stuff like that, where he has the weapon in one hand and the scepter in the other, and like um for any polity, some, as they say, s- monopoly on the use of force is necessary, right? um Now, whether it's wielded justly is a different question, isn't it? But you know that's how, primarily speaking, societies are built. um and so I do think discipline, order, and its other um sort of like related concepts are necessary, right? um but excuse me, while you can have a lot of stability with discipline and order, you might not have progress. You People can get caught up into a system and not even question it, even if it is right or wrong, right? I mean, think about all of the human systems that we've come up with. Like, for example, basism. Um, in the US, especially, man, that's one of the things about being a citizen of the United States. people say, "Oh, you guys focus too much on race, and like other countries have different definitions of race and stuff." And I completely agree, but you guys have to understand that literally the antecedents of what would become the United States, um for a long while, half the country directly and the other half of the country, like, Iran, just like a lot of other, you know, especially pre-modern and um antique slash classical societies, ran on servant labor, guys. Like, the one in the US came out of a specific, like, petty, I don't like to use this word, but like bourgeois capitalism that necessitated the strictness of those definitions of race, where even the no Germans guys like um were like, dang, you guys are strict, because even they, like, if you were if you had less than a quarter Jewish blood, then you weren't legally considered Jewish for them. Think about that, guys. Whereas in a lot of places in the United States, like, um, one drop and that was it. That's why, like, you have quote unquote biracial, or even quote unquote light skin or white passing people identifying with their the oppressed their oppressed race, right? Like, and that's the downside to discipline, the discipline which kept, and the order which kept such a system in place for so long, because even the people that did question it had financial incentives to keep it alive, until, of course, it blew up in the nation's face and it had to be reconstructed, which, by the way, was not done correctly, and it's still not done. We're still fighting that battle. Um, and it brings up something that about ethics, and notice I didn't say morality, because the etymology for morality comes from the Latin mos moris, which means like a custom. Uh, so I'm talking more about like a universal ethic of what is good and evil. Although I know some people would argue that that doesn't really exist, but I think it does. And um you know like, and this is something that I keep reading: Hegel, Nietzsche, Aristotle to some extent, although Aristotle is kind of tied to the idea that even when we edit laws, they're not really like, yes, they are changing them, but the character of law itself as a concept stays pure. Like, if you read the Nicomachean Ethics, he says that, and it's like, we talk about Aristotle like breaking from Plato and stuff like that, but um at least like in that particular portion of the Nicomachean Ethics, the Nicomachean Ethics covers so much, but like you think about that, and that sounds like very Platonic, very Socratic, doesn't it? Why does the law attain that special category? It's almost like a form, even though, you know, Aristotle, as we know, doesn't actually metaphysically or physically feel that way um all that much. And honestly, guys, I haven't been able to figure it out. TBH, that's one of the enduring questions that I have. It's but yeah, every moral innovation is usually perceived as a crime, or at the very least, um, uh, um, grave offense to the society in which it happens, right? Um, like a lot of examples are, let's say, I know Gandhi had a lot of sus things about him, but for the most part, Gandhi, Nehru, Chandra Bose, or um, wait, was it Chandra Bose? Someone will correct me, but I think so. And Nelson Mandela, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, um, they all stood against prevailing systems of discipline and order and authority, and with good reason. So, how is it that we can discern whether something is just rooted in morality, like I'll say, in that moss, in that custom, rather than a true ethic of what we should actually be doing? I mean, it seems kind of inevitable. Even Hegel talks about that, like the consciousness that knows itself to such an extent that it becomes self conscious and can sort of realize that no, what this current, you know, world spirit controlling things, it's not the right one. I need to do something different and bring something different to the people and free myself from being the servant to whatever my particular bondsman is. Same thing with Nietzsche and yeah, I don't know, but going back down to the personal level, I consider myself a disciplined person. Um like, I try to work out every day cuz I'm in a wheelchair and I don't really get that much more physical activity. I've recently been on a cut. I've been trying to reduce my weight so I can, have more muscle mass in aggregate. Um and I've cut down on almost all sweets. I'll have one single little piece of Toblerone chocolate, not the whole bar, but one of the little squares, which are now like some platonic solid because Nestle is cheap. um Uh, but again, guys, like that comes with its own drawbacks because I'm self-righteous and obnoxious sometimes. But I know the danger of what it means to not have discipline and to, you know, just kind of let the wind take you or whatever and not be goal oriented. I'm not saying that you have to be like Sigma grind set type discipline or whatever, but like, yeah, man, I just don't want to be aimless. Although I somewhat admire freer spirits that can sort of just take things as they come. Like, I don't know. I like to have plans and dreams and ideals. Although I wouldn't say I'm an idealist, but I do have ideals. Um and discipline and order are a big part of that, you know. I feel like have something a lot of people are missing is like having a routine and stuff like that. And I feel like that's also part of this social pipeline, especially for men, where, you know, they get you into like fitness content first, and then you slowly get like trad pilled and become an ortho or trad cath bro. Although I was never really religious, for it did sort of start happen to me, and like, you know, I do kind of wish there was like an equivalent of that on like the political left, but there's just not really, you know. And like that's kind of a big gap because like order is can be good. It really can be, but it's just if it gets to the point where like the pluralism of of a society is destroyed, I'm not sure like I can get behind that discipline, that order. Um but at its root, it's still fulfilling a human need of feeling like you're a part of something, or using it as an escape, or using it to try to go towards a goal. That's the thing, right, about human life, that, you know, we're just kind of thrown, as cliche as it is, right? Like you hear this from, oh, I'm so deep kind of people, kind of nihilistic people, right? We're just kind of thrown into this world with kind of no guide, and we try to make the best of it that we can. But even it's like, even if existence precedes essence, like not really defined in by our like base desires like other animals. And it's like, but at the same time we kind of are, because we're a product of evolution and nature, just like everything else. But yet we have this, you know, self which can reflect and then relate to others, and we can change ourselves for the better and for worse. It's just like, for a lot of people don't get past mm, the self that they already are. They don't reflect. And so what do you do about them? Well, you provide them with, first of all, you isolate them so there's no chance that that information could ever get to them from another person, right? And then second of all, you you fill that void with, like, oh, join this or that movement. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, guys. Like, I'm socialist leaning. I think mass movements are important, but we can't close our eyes to the stuff that mass movements have all perpetrated, right? And it's kind of like, Hannah Arendt said, it's not that discipline itself is bad, or that being alone is bad. It's alienation, where you get to such a point of just like being removed from human society, or even just feeling that way, that, you know like, you get into this extreme stuff, that it's kind of like, even if it is necessary, like, people are driven to do so much terrible stuff about it. um anyway, guys, I don't know if I made sense, but, like, final words: have some order in your life, have some routine. uh Try to, of course, respect traditions, but also be critical of them, and try to develop your ethical sense in such a way where, if you really rebel, if you really decide to assert your individuality, make sure it's for a good cause, and try to be try to have enough foresight to where, in the future, when you think back on this thing, you'll say, oh yeah, I was right to do that. I'm on the right side of history. Because there are certainly uh certain things right now, Israel, Palestine. Oh, sorry, who, I had a cough. Who said that? Where I feel like a lot of people, of a certain group, will look back and say, how could we have done this? How could have this been done in our name? And yeah, guys, just be very careful with discipline, because it's a double-edged sword. All right, bye.